It's with great pleasure that I welcome back Dr. Sean Patel, who's the CEO and founder of Prep Expert, the title sponsor of the College Admissions Process podcast. Sean, you have a special message for the listeners?
Hey, John, I just wanted to mention for all the parents and students who are listening to this great podcast, we have a really special offer only for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast for Prep Expert. So, if your student is going to be taking an online SAT, ACT, PSAT course anytime soon, or is looking for one on one tutoring with top 1% tutors, head over to prepexpert.com. We offer live online courses for every college admissions exam. On top of that, we have the best score guarantees, best curriculum, and best instructors in the test prep industry. And just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast, you can get 20% off any online SAT or PSAT or ACT course, as well as one-on-one tutoring. So you can get 20% off. Just make sure you use the promo code College Talk. That's one word, College Talk, and you'll get 20% off just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast. And I hope you guys can use that to your advantage, save a bunch of money at prepexpert.com.
Thank you so much, Sean. And to everyone out there, once again, that promo code is College Talk. That's one word, College Talk. Thank you all, and best wishes. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Tim Fields, who's the Senior Associate Dean of Admission at Emory University. Tim was back here on episode 211, which was released in June of 2024. Tim, always a pleasure to see you at conferences and to chat with you. You are a star in this thing that we call college admissions. How are you, Tim? And thank you so much for coming back.
Great to be here, John. Always great to see you. And just continuing, like you and a lot of other college admission professionals, to trying to do good work. A lot is going on. A lot has changed. So, platforms like this make sure that we can get good information to people who not only are going through the process, but also trying to support the process.
Well, thank you so much, because my podcast is only available because of people like you and your colleagues that are willing to come on week after week and share all of your expertise and tips and advice for students, parents, and the many college counselors that actually listen. So, Tim, to start, can you give us a refreshed overview of Emory University today, both academically and in terms of the student experience?
Yeah, absolutely. There has been some change since the last time I was on the podcast, but Emory still essentially remains the same place. We are in Atlanta, Georgia. We are a Research One university that also has a liberal arts college mission. So we actually have two undergraduate campuses. We have the Emory College campus, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. It's roughly about 15 minutes outside of downtown Atlanta, so would not consider it an urban campus, more kind of suburban feel. But obviously, if you want to access a city, you have those opportunities. And then we have our Oxford College campus, which is about an hour outside of Atlanta, has about 1,000 students. And that campus is going to be students who wanted to start in a smaller environment during their first and second year. So when you think about Emory, one of the first things that you need to kind of wrap your mind around is, where do you want to begin? Do you want to come to the Atlanta campus? It has about 5,500 students. It's 15 minutes outside of downtown Atlanta. Do you want to be an hour outside of Atlanta on the Oxford College campus? It has 1,000 students. Both campuses are going to provide a great education. If you begin on the Oxford College campus, you'll spend 2 years there and transition, because everybody's going to finish on the Atlanta campus. And on both campuses, I will say that it is very collaborative, community-oriented experience. Students want to be very supportive of one another. A lot of great things to do outside of the classroom. I'm sure we'll get into that. Over 400 different clubs or organizations. So, I would say if you're looking at Emory You are looking at kind of, you want to go to a medium-sized school with some research opportunities. Definitely, you want to, kind of lean into the liberal arts. And then we have over 80 different majors that we offer across the two campuses. So a lot of great opportunity in a world-class city that, definitely I think, students and families should consider depending upon what they're looking to study in school and the experience that they would like to have.
Well, we appreciate the overview, Tim. And I was just curious, are there specific majors at the Oxford campus, for example, that students can only study at that location?
Great question. So actually, all the majors take place on the Atlanta campus. So all 80 majors are housed on the Atlanta campus. And so if student began at Oxford, similar to the Emory, you have your first 2 years to explore what it is that you would like to study. Students at Emory do not have to declare their major until the end of their second year. So if a student wanted to start at Oxford and wanted to study nursing, they would study the prerequisites of nursing the same way a student on the Atlanta campus would. If they are interested in studying economics, they would say declare on the Oxford College campus economics the same way as Atlanta campus would, and then they would just continue on. So there's no different majors at Oxford College. You were just beginning in a smaller environment and continue on to the Atlanta campus, and then ultimately you're going to arrive at the same major as somebody who would have started on the Atlanta campus. But it's truly up to the students as far as how they want to begin their college experience at Emory.
Well, we appreciate the insights. And earlier you touched upon a lot of changes in college admissions. So, Tim, since our last conversation, what trends are you seeing in applications, selectivity, and the overall competitiveness of Emory's application pool?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate enough to be at Emory for over 20 years. And so in that time period, I've seen our applicant grow from roughly 12 to 15,000 students to upwards of over 40,000. So, we have over 40,000 applications. So that's a trend that, we're seeing, but a lot of the more selective colleges are seeing. And, one, I think that's, driven just by kind of selectivity, the applicant pool, the common application where students can apply to multiple places. But it is because students are applying to more places. The selectivity is, getting, harder. And so this year for regular decision, I think for the past 2 years, our admit rate has been under 10%. So definitely we're seeing a lot more selectivity. Also, where it's interesting to kind of see the behavior in the test optional space. We still remain to be test optional, which I think, students are leaning into so that they have options as far as, whether they want to submit test scores or not. So I think that's been helpful in our applicant pool. And then obviously, the federal changes that have taken place has kind of affected kind of the way that we can go about recruiting, yielding, and things of that nature. So we've seen those changes as well. So, definitely still a growth in our applicant pool, which is very exciting. The selectivity going down is kind of, a reaction to the larger selective college admission marketplace. And, like all schools, kind of reacting to federal policy, making sure that we're following those federal policies and adhering to whatever laws have been governed. But still, the goal is to make the best class as possible. Having people from diverse perspectives, backgrounds, having people with different academic interests, lived experiences. So we really are still trying to create a community, but obviously under the guidance of what is currently in place by the federal government.
Understood, Tim. And early decision is a major consideration for families navigating Emory's admissions process. From your perspective, Tim, is there a real advantage to applying ED, and what should families be careful about when considering it? Now, of course, early decision is binding, but if someone really wants Emory, are they at an advantage by applying early decision in terms of the percentage of students that are admitted or not?
Yeah, so this is what we're going to get into semantics, John. In my information sessions, I say, do you have an advantage by applying early? I would not use the word advantage. I would not say that it's easier. What I would say as far as about ED1 is I would say there's a higher statistical probability that you get in early decision than regular decision. And so why I use that is, if we go from the baseline of 40,000 applications, roughly about 5,000 of those people are going to apply early decision. Those students on any given year are going to, take up upwards to 50% of the class. So you have 5,000 people who are applying for 50% of the class versus 35,000 people who are applying for early decision two and regular decision. So you can see that, as far as from an admit rate, a statistical probability, there is a better chance. But what I also will say on that, the profile, the requirements, what we're looking for in those students is going to be exactly the same throughout all of our decision plans. So, yes, there is a higher probability that you could get in through early decision. However, the criteria in which that you need to be admitted to Emory is going to be the same throughout all periods. So, to your point, early decision is something that should be taken very seriously. It is something that, you have to in your family. So when you sign an early decision agreement, you have the student, the parent, the counselor all agree that this is where I want to attend. So we would prefer people not to use it as a strategy. We would prefer people to say, this is where I truly want to be, that I want to be at Emory, that I've gone through the process and established that this is a place where I can thrive, grow. And that yes, I think if my probability is higher getting in early, we're going to take that chance, but we're going to take the chance knowing that we are generally interested in attending Emory, and we are simply not applying because we think that there's an easier probability of getting in early than regular. So that's how we would want people to approach it. But yes, there is a higher probability, kind of given the percentages of early decision people we take and the amount of people who are applying early decision, understanding the binding admission process that you laid out.
Well, I appreciate that. And I love how you talked about whether you apply ED or not, the criteria is in fact the same, students, because listen, whether it's Emory or any college or university throughout the country and beyond, first of all, they want to make sure that they're going to admit you because they know that you can handle the work. And of course, they want to know that you're going to add to their awesome community. Now, Tim, when Emory is building a class, what institutional priorities are most influential right now? Academic interest, intellectual diversity, geographic balance, or is there something else?
Yeah, what I would say, for us at Emory, your academic interest is definitely a guiding factor. And I say that in the sense of not, we don't select by academic interest, we don't select by major, you don't have to apply to a school. But, roughly because of our healthcare centers, because of our hospitals, because the CDC is right next door, because we have a medical center. We have an overwhelming amount of students who apply interested in the STEM pre-med, pre-professional type of area. We also have one of the top business schools in the country. So we have a lot of students who are applying through the business school. So 70% of the students that apply to Emory express an interest in either a STEM area or business, which means that, we want to kind of diversify that applicant pool. So we are looking for people in the humanities. We're looking for people in the social sciences. We are looking for people in the fine arts. And so, yes, we definitely want to lean into our strength in the STEM and business field, but we are also, leaning into people from other academic areas. So a lot of times students, and families believe that we're just a medical school, that we just have STEM. No, we are a liberal arts college. We have 80 different majors, and we want to make sure that there's a place for students who may be interested in the humanities. We have one of the top English and creative writing programs in the country. Economics is actually our largest major by individual people in one academic area. We have a great music program that students. We're not a conservatory, but there are music opportunities. So I would say academic interest in making sure we are exposing students to multiple disciplines is probably the first part. Obviously, we want to have people from all around the country and all around the world Right now, we have students from all 50 states, over 100 countries around the world. So a diverse geographic perspective. And then, I would say, but always the first and foremost is going to be kind of the academic profile, that we want to make sure the students are prepared. They challenge themselves within their high school curriculum or the school curriculum that they've taken up until the point of applying. And once we see that they have a great academic foundation, then we're going to really kind of get into, who are you? What are you going to add to this community? And there are any number of components that could go into that. But, making sure that people know that we are just not a STEM school. We're just not a medical school. We're just not a business school. That we have something for areas and students in a lot of different areas is something that's very important that we let people know as far as kind of what things we're looking for and what institutional priorities are guiding us right now.
Well, you're making that very clear. And another thing that's really clear on your website is that you have the map of the United States and you actually show the percentages of students that enroll from the different corners of the United States and your percentage of international students. So geographic diversity and all of the other things that you mentioned is definitely something near and dear to Emory University. Tim, what would you say to families that are obsessed with the rankings? Everyone looks at the top 25, the top 50, and they have this perceived real stress of the college admissions process. And I always say, look, if you're applying to schools where the acceptance rate is 10% or less, that's a reach school for everybody because, if you're looking to fill a class, let's say of 2,000 students and you're getting over 40,000 applications, you could fill your class 3, 4, perhaps 5 times over with a balanced look at, students academically and the type of things that they did inside and outside of the classroom. And so when it comes to the rankings and people just looking at the top 25, what would you say to students and families to help them reduce that stress that I believe many times is self-imposed?
Yeah, so I mean that's an excellent question, John, and this is near and dear to me with not only my work here at Emory but other work that we do throughout our profession. And so what I would say is, I was at a talk a couple years ago. A young lady raises her hand. It was in the Northeast, I believe Connecticut, and the young lady was like, colleges are so hard to get into. How do I, stand out? And I paused, and my response was that college really is not that hard to get into. The majority of college in this country, 4,000 college universities, about 75% of them admit most of the people who apply. So the only time college admission becomes difficult is when you start looking at these selective schools in which you kind of highlighted ones with admit rates below 10%. So what I would tell families is, yes, if that is something that you want to try out, you can. But the reality is there's no guarantee for any of those schools anymore. So you need to have a balanced list. And your balanced list needs to consist of schools that, you can say, oh, this is going to be a school that, our academic profile meets. We think we have a good chance of getting in here. And then you need to know that, a lot of these more selective schools, you're taking a shot because as we were talking about institutional priorities, all schools have them. They have these large applicant pools. And reality is that, most of the students, no matter how well academically prepared they are, they're not going to get in. And so one of the big things that, we like to try and highlight is tell families to redefine what success looks like. That success is not a ranking, that success is not a particular type of brand of school. I challenge, all the parents and educators that are listening to this to go just right now, look in your cell phone and look at, the last 10 friends, family that you called. And if those people went to college, most of them probably did not go to a selective or, elite type of institution by rankings. And those people are probably highly successful in life. That I can, run down a laundry list of people who did not go to Ivy League or Ivy type institutions who are making a large impact in society. And so, yes, obviously there are rankings and there's prestige that is given to a lot of institutions, but I would say there are far more successful people who are going to, state schools right outside of, where you're at, John, the SUNY system. There are a lot of people who are doing great work who are in that system. I think, here, in, Georgia, University of Georgia, and Georgia Tech, at Georgia State. People are going to the public flagship systems and going to do them very, very well. Small liberal arts colleges. So I think people need to be very thoughtful in this process and not go get so caught up in 20 schools that they believe are the key to academic success, because that's not true. I think, people operating from that are playing from an old playbook. There's a lot that's changing in college admission. There's a lot that's changing in our workforce. There's a lot that's changing in kind of how the workforce is becoming more global. So saying that, more than 20, 30 institutions are the only institutions that you could be successful at is just not true, because there's so many people who are adding to society in major ways who did not go to quote unquote one of the most selective schools in the country. And finally, I would like to use a example of Tim Cook. Tim Cook went to Auburn University. Most people, Auburn's a great institution, but associate Auburn with football before they do that of CEO of a Fortune 1 company who produced over $4 trillion for Apple in his tenure prior to his, retirement in this fall. So, think about what are the opportunities you make at your institution, because you have to make what your experience is. An institution name is not going to do that in a lot of instances.
Well, I think that's a great overview. And it reminds me, one of our colleagues who was on the podcast once said, if someone is applying to UPenn and Dartmouth, other than the fact that both of them are Ivy League schools, they are so different, right? And so clearly that particular student didn't necessarily apply to those schools because he or she found a fit, a connection to the college or university. They were just basically looking off the top 25 list and applying simply because they're under the umbrella of being an Ivy League school. So we appreciate the overview, Tim. Thank you so much. And you wanted to say something more?
Yeah, yeah. I just very quickly on that point. I was at a case study a couple weeks ago, and there was an admission officer who said something similar. That if somebody applies to every Ivy League institution, then they did not do their research, because they're all different institutions. They all different campus climates in different places in different sizes. So for you to say I'm just going to apply to Ivy League institutions, you're not really interested in a college experience. You're more or less interested in a college name, and that's not what I know you, I, or many of our admission professionals want of people doing a college search process. We want people to be very thoughtful, not only about where they want to spend their time, but where is it going to be? What opportunities am I going to have? So I agree wholeheartedly that, just applying to an institution type by name, you're not doing your due diligence. And one of the great things I think you do in this podcast is, bringing on people, also individually sharing what families should be thinking about as they go about the college admission process.
Well, I appreciate that, Tim. And I think it goes to show the importance of connecting with the college or university because I would imagine, right? And Tim, you've been working in admissions for decades. I would imagine that at the end of the day, when you have a group of students that have excellent academic records, right? Their transcripts, perhaps they submit scores, they don't submit scores, but academically, you deem them as they can absolutely handle the work on our campus. They also have shown so much diversity in terms of the types of activities that they participated in after class throughout high school. But at the end of the day, when you have a bunch of kids that are equal, perhaps something like the supplemental essay, right? Which really is an opportunity for students to show their connection to a college or university. What's the right fit? Are they connected? What did they do in high school that's in line with your core values? That could be a differentiator in terms of helping students be admitted or not. But if they're not showing true connectedness, true fit, then, they might just go into the pile of many, many other students that are not showing that. Am I making any sense, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think the larger point that you're making is you're writing your voice, who you are matters. But specifically on supplemental essays, I think it becomes very, very important for students to, really dig into, whatever the question is like, why are you interested in this institution? So really kind of like, what are the things about this institutions beyond the size, location, the aesthetics of the campus that would have you on that campus? But what are the things that you say, I want to be here, for 4 years. Also, while Emory doesn't look at demonstrated interest, there are some institutions that those supplemental essays can make or break, how interested you are in that institution. And to your point, you just don't want to be, have your application thrown out because, you said I'm interested in a beautiful mid-sized campus outside of relatively close to a major metropolitan city, which could be 1,000 different institutions. So you want to really kind of be specific. And, really the overall arching thing is, especially if you're applying to places like Emory, some of the more selective schools, your essay, your voice is something that really differentiates your application. So looking at the upcoming class, the class of, 27. So as you are finishing your junior year, going into your senior year, here's the reality. The Common App opens up on August 1st. Right now, you could apply to college because your grades aren't going to change that much. What people think of you and through the letter's recommendation is pretty much set. The extracurricular activities that you've done pretty much are already set. If you apply to school or submit or plan to submit test scores, those aren't going to change much in the next 4 months. So the only thing that is going to differ on your application between if you apply now and whenever you apply in the fall is really the essays. And so this summer should really be a time that you dig in to say, what is it that I want to share with this institution that's going to help me stand out? Because I can say in my over 20 years of doing this, there have been a lot of students who have been admitted because of who they are, because of their voice, because of what they can add to the campus, because of the perspective that they are going to bring to campus through what we found out through essays. Just having a great GPA, just having a high test score, if you admit it, is not going to move the meter because in reality, at Emory, of the 40,000 people who applied, 30,000 of those people were admissible based upon GPAs, test scores that they submitted them, academic criteria, things of that nature. When we're making final decisions, we're really, really digging in to looking at those essays, hearing that voice, seeing how this person is going to contribute to campus. So that is where you really can kind of differentiate yourself. I often say at a place like Emory that has an admit rate below 10% for a regular decision, you are not going to be the best at anything in this applicant pool. There is going to be somebody from around the world, from around the country, whatever your thing is going to be better than you. Be it academics, be it sports, be it music, be it theater, whatever your thing is. But what you can be the best at is being you. So these essays are the opportunity to where you really lean into your individual characteristics. And those are the things that are going to help you stand out if you ultimately decide to apply for selected places like Emory. Just saying that I have a high GPA and a high test score and I'm president in a couple clubs, so I think I have a shot. That's everybody. So how are you different? And that's where your voice comes in.
Hey, podcast friends, if you've been enjoying the College Admissions Process podcast, I'm excited to share my new book, Straight from the Admissions Office, Insider Strategies for College Applications. It's packed with insights and tips from over 250 podcast episodes with admissions professionals designed to make the college process less overwhelming. Whether you're a student, parent, or college counselor, it's a valuable resource for navigating the admissions process. By grabbing a copy, you're also helping to support the podcast. The links are in the show notes. Thank you, and best wishes to all with the college admissions process. Well, such great advice. And I love that you said about 40,000 applications, approximately 30,000 students are admissible. And so you're right. At the time of filling out the applications, the transcript is pretty much done. Whatever you did in 9th, 10th, 11th grade, your work in progress as a senior, your activity list, whatever you did in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, again, it is done. But where you have the opportunity, students, to differentiate yourselves is in the personal statement to really give, as Tim said, your authentic voice. They want to hear about you, but also in those supplementals, the importance of showing connection, showing fit, and not just saying something like, well, I want to go to Emory because I want to be in an urban environment. As Tim said earlier, that's about, maybe 2,000 schools, 3,000 schools that, could fulfill that, right? So what is the connected piece to Emory specific And I also know that a lot of times students, they'll see that a school has one or two supplementals and they say, oh man, I just spent so much time on the personal statement. I'm just going to kind of, rush through this. Or even worse, they write a supplemental essay for one school and try to use it for multiple schools, which is a true mistake because, again, students, you want to show your fit, your understanding of their core values, their mission, their philosophy. Show that you understand it. Show perhaps what you've done in high school that's in line with it. And by the way, what do you plan on doing once you're on the great Emory University's campus? Because you're not done. A lot of times people think, well, I apply to college, I get in, and I'm done. Guess what, folks? That's just the beginning. So, Tim, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for all your insights. Let's unpackage the different parts of the application just a little bit. When reviewing a transcript, Tim, right, that number one piece in terms of the academic review, what stands out most at Emory beyond just the GPA, and how is upward academic growth viewed in your review process?
Yeah, thanks for asking that because the application process, I think, is going to vary from institution to institution. So the first thing that I'll share is Emory, we are going to recalculate your GPA based upon your sophomore, junior, and senior year grades. So, we think freshman year time was a long time ago. We don't think it's reflective of where you were coming, where you were at as you were coming into college. Now, that's not to say that the classes don't matter. We just don't, recalculate those classes. So if you, took, AP Human Geography your first year, wonderful. We're going to see that on your transcript and we're going to, take that in consideration. But what I would say, the first thing, the most important thing is the classes you have taken based upon the individual context of your high school or educational environment. So, we don't compare high schools. We don't say that this high school, the public high school, isn't as good as an independent school. Somebody who went to independent school, we think somebody who went to boarding school is better. Somebody who's homeschooled. Like, we don't get into any of those comparisons. So whatever individual educational environment that you have, did you take advantage of that? If you're at an AP school, did you take some AP courses? If you're at an IB school, are you in an IB diploma program? If your high school district doesn't offer AP or IB, and you're part of a dual enrollment system, are you taking some dual enrollment classes? A lot of schools are moving towards having their own individualized curriculum. That's perfectly fine. Did you challenge yourself? But we want to make very sure that people understand that we are looking at you in the context of your high school. So what did you do with the academic opportunities, with the resources outside of the classroom? So the transcript is going to be very, very important. And so that is when we are going to really, really lean into what classes did you take? And really, the hope is that you have challenged yourself and you've taken the highest level across multiple disciplines. And so, did you take the highest level math? Did you take the highest level English? Did you take a higher level social science? Did you take a natural science? Even if you are interested in the humanities, the social sciences say, I don't like science. That's fine. But a lot of students who are applying to highly selected places are challenging themselves across all these disciplines in addition to taking advanced languages. So really maximizing the opportunities that you're taking. A GPA is just a number on paper. What we are going to be looking at is what classes did you take that drives what that GPA looks like. And then you mentioned upward trajectory. We understand that students have transitions, that things happen. You may have had a hard transition for your first year. We're not going to look at that. Second year, your GPA started to rebound a little bit. Third year, you got stronger. Senior year, we see you have your highest grades. We love that upward trajectory. That is what we are looking for. But at the same time, you could have a very high GPA your sophomore year, junior year doing great, and then your first semester senior year, you fall off once your curriculum gets very rigorous. We also see that as well. So, not only what classes are you taking, what is your trajectory, how are you doing as you're coming into college are going to be kind of the foundational parts that we are going to look at. And it's really going to set the stage for the rest of the application review.
Well, we really appreciate that overview. I love how you talked about the fact that you do recalculate the GPA. And although you see the ninth grade grades as part of your holistic review, Tim made it very clear in terms of their recalculation, they're using only 10th and 11th grade. And in terms of the overall look, students, they are basing their evaluation of you on the context of your high school. What was available to you? What did you choose to take over 4 years? And of course, how did you perform? Now, Tim, a question that comes up all the time, give you an example here. You have a school that offers over 20 advanced placement courses, but they also offer their fair share of dual enrollment courses. So, what are you looking at when a student, for example, chooses a dual enrollment over an AP? For example, is it based on how the high school weighs APs versus dual enrollment? Some high schools give a bonus point for all of those classes. Some might give the bonus point only for AP and none for dual enrollment. How do you answer that question? Should I take AP or dual enrollment?
Yeah, so since this is specific to Emory, what I'm going to say is we would always prefer if a student is at a AP school and has dual enrollment, we would prefer that they maximize the AP curriculum at the school, and then once they exhaust that, then go to dual enrollment. Why is that? Right, wrong, or indifferent, we can, kind of argue kind of the subjective nature of the process, but AP is a much more standardized system that we understand what is the foundation of these courses, how has it prepared students for college. That is much more of a standardized system than dual enrollment. Dual enrollment, a lot of different schools, 4-year schools, 2-year schools, community colleges. What calculus is at those different schools, we don't know. What U.S. history is at those schools, we don't know. So when you get into the dual enrollment, there's a lot more differentiating syllabi, things that people are studying that we don't know. Whereas with the AP system, it's much more standardized. So if you have a choice, and I want to be clear, if you have a choice, we would prefer you maximize the AP curriculum. And if you took all those classes, you don't have anything else, then go to dual enrollment. If we see that you just took all dual enrollment classes and you are at an AP school and you did not take any AP classes, we are going to ask why. And that is going to be a major red flag for us. And so, also just, a note, dual enrollment is great. However, there are also going to be similar to AP, there are going to be limits on how much of those credits that we can take. So you can take a lot of dual enrollment courses, but as a private institution, a lot of those courses may not translate to our curriculum, so you won't get college credit the same way that you would receive college credit for 4s or 5s in AP curriculum. So we would prefer the AP curriculum first. Once you exhaust that, move on to the dual enrollment. That is for us at Emory University. Each institution has their own philosophy on how they differentiate these different curriculums. But as far as Emory, we would prefer somebody maximize the high school that is in the walls of their high school first. And once they exhaust that, then move on to dual enrollment in classes outside of that school.
Well, we appreciate the clear insights. And I also remember you talking about the fact last time that Emory is test flexible. So, Tim, how do students use AP scores? For example, if they took them while they were in 10th grade, 11th grade, how do they use AP scores in your overall application review?
Yeah, so we are, test optional, but we also, being test optional, there, to your point, is a lot of flexibility in that. So there are students who decide, what, I don't like my SAT or ACT score. However, in AP exams, I have done very, very well. So they ultimately decide to submit AP scores, 4s or 5s, through their application, and they don't submit SAT or ACT, and that's perfectly fine. For our incoming class, for the class of 25, about half of those people submitted SAT or ACT scores. So, roughly about 50% submitted those. But then there was another about 25% of students who only submitted AP scores. So if you say, Tim, how many students submitted test scores for part of their application process, that's roughly about 70% submitted some form of testing, but a lot of those were students who just want to submit AP test scores. And so what I will share is that for Emory, we're going to take test AP scores that are 4s and 5s. So for those are the ones, if you want to submit, I want to continue to underline we're test optional. AP scores aren't part of the admission process, aren't part of the admission requirements. So you don't need to submit AP scores if you don't want to. But if you scored a 4 or 5, which means you've excelled on the exam in our eyes, then submit that. For Emory, if you took an AP class and you got an A in the class and you took that test, you score 1 or 2, keep that 1 or 2 a secret. I don't want to know about it. Obviously, if you want to submit a 3, you can. There are a lot of institutions around the country who will give them college credit. Emory's not one of them, but 3 is a solid score. So if you want to submit a 3, 4, or 5, you can, but it's not part of it. But definitely it's a way for students to highlight their academic abilities through testing if they have done well on AP test scores and they don't want to submit ACT or SAT, as we are test optional.
Understood. And in terms of being test optional and going back to the standardized test, of course, we're talking about the SAT or the ACT. A lot of times students will ask, should I submit or not? What would you say to them, Tim?
Oh, John, this is my soapbox. So I need you to hold on here. And this is, something I share in information sessions, and it's something that, I truly believe in my personal philosophy. Right now, in a test optional world, the people who submit test scores are people who've done very well. And so those scores are being driven up. So the middle 50 percentile for Emory is roughly between 1490 and 1550 for the SAT. For the ACT, it's 33 to 35. I'm here to say those numbers aren't real. Okay. Let me repeat. Those numbers aren't real. What is happening is those people who want to submit test scores, who've done well, they are inflating them. And what is happening is that students believe and families believe a 1500 is normal. A 34 and a 35 is normal, and they are not. They in the top 1% of test takers in the country. And so families go into this process thinking, if I don't have a 1500, if I don't have a 33, a 34, I don't have a good test score, which is just not true. And so for Emory, what I would say is, do you need a 1500 to submit? No. Do you need a 35 to submit? No. What I will share is the high school transcript is the most important piece. And then there are a lot of other things that we're going to look at in the college application. The test is just a data point of one Saturday that you took. And so I would, share if a student scored over 30, it's a great score. You submit that. If a student scored over 1350, submit that. That's a great score. That's for Emory University. Because what happens is so many families get stuck in this place to where they think a 1400 is not a good score and they don't submit. A 1400 is a wonderful score. Oh, a 32, I didn't do well. 32 is the top 5% of test takers for the ACT. So, you ultimately for Emory, where test optional, it doesn't matter. But what I don't want people to feel is that 1500s are normal, 34s are normal. And if you don't have that, your test score is not going to help you in the process. That is just not true. I think a lot of people need to understand the context of test scores and knowing that 30s, 31s, 32s are great test scores. 1350, 1400, 1450s are great test scores. And if you fall in that range, then I would encourage you to submit. So just that's kind of my view on testing. There are too many families who think that a 1450 is a bad SAT score, and that is completely ridiculous to me. Or that a 31 is a bad ACT score, and that makes no sense to me, given that the average ACT score nationally is 19. The average SAT score nationally is 1,000. That people think that, once you get into the 1300s, that those aren't good scores. Those are absolutely wonderful scores. And you should be thoughtful about how you use those scores and see if they can help you in the college admission process, depending upon where you're applying. But for Emory, I want students to, think about it, but not think that the 1500s and the 34s are the norm.
Well, we appreciate those insights, especially how you shared very specific numbers, Tim. Thank you so much. And after years, I'll say after decades in admissions at Emory, Tim, what is a question that you wish more families ask, but they rarely do?
Yeah, I think I wish more families, ask about the environment. Like, what is my experience going to be outside of the classroom? What are the opportunities that my student is going to have during the time that they are in, college? I think so many of the questions are about academic majors or about research or about, faculty, which are very, very important. I think the academics should kind of drive kind of your interest in a school. But the reality is most of the time you are in college, you're going to be outside of the classroom. You're going to be in residential halls. You're going to be in dining halls. You're going to be part of different clubs or organizations. You're just going to be kind of hanging out. You're going to, maybe be in the physical education facilities. You're going to be taking road trips, going into whatever local town or city, finding eateries. And so those are the things that I think, families should really lean into is what is my experience? And so if you want me to tell you about Emory, I can tell you about Emory, the academic experience, all those things. But if you want me to tell you about the Emory experience, I will talk a lot about Atlanta and what Atlanta adds to said experience. And so you can't tell the Emory story to me without highlighting Atlanta that has all the opportunities that the city has available to students as far as, being a top eatery in the country, as far as I think it's one of the top three foodie cities in the country, as far as being, one of the top cities for Fortune 500 companies. So students who want to have internships during the academic year, being a leader in the film and media production in the country, having a large, healthcare network, having over 50 different colleges, universities. And so, to me, I can talk about the academics, but I can't tell the story of Emory without talking about everything that Atlanta has to offer. And so I wish more families really thought about what is the outside of the classroom experience going to be, because that is ultimately, I think, going to be what the students remember and not so much, a professor, a class, a lab, and things of that nature.
Well, I think it's such a great point. When we visit many times, we're focused so much on the beautiful campuses, and there are so many out there. But to your point, Tim, also looking at the opportunities outside of campus, whether it's one of the awesome eateries, research opportunities, or just being in the great city of Atlanta and all that it has to offer culturally and everything else is something that is so important. Tim, this has been a phenomenal conversation, as I knew it would be. Before we wrap up, I always like to ask the question, is there something that I didn't ask you today that you wish I had? And I know we covered a lot, but perhaps was there a topic that simply didn't come up yet that you'd like to share with the listeners now?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that specifically talk about Emory that is not asked is I wish you would have asked about athletics. So Emory is Division III. We've won over 32 national championships, and a lot of those national championships have come in. We have a very elite swimming and diving team that have won, multiple national championships. Men's and women's tennis is a leader. And college athletics, our women's volleyball team is a leader as well. And then the last 2 years, our men's, basketball team has been in the Elite Eight as far as the basketball. And this past year, we were in the NCAA Division III National Championship and lost on a last second shot. So, while we are not, Division I, we have our neighbors up the street at the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech who, can, produce a great deal of energy through their Division I sports, having 90,000 people on a Saturday. We don't have that. But there is a rich tradition and history in athletics that we have here at Emory. And for students who are looking to, continue on and compete at the highest level, as far as Division III, I think Emory presents a great opportunity for students, if that is something that they're looking for. And not only those sports, but our 19 men's and women's sports that we have across the board.
Well, we appreciate that, Tim. That is awesome. And so before we close, I also want to highlight your book, Tim. It's called The Black Family's Guide to College Admissions. Tim, what inspired you to write it? And what are the most important insights or messages you hope students and families take away from it as they navigate through the admissions process?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Just very quickly, I mean, it was inspired by, one, just wanting to get information out to families. Found there was just a kind of information gap as far as Black families specifically, how they were getting information about the college admission process. But one of the things about the book is 80% of the book is for anybody. It talks about different college universities. It talks about the admission processes we talked about. It talks about essays. It talks about visiting colleges. So while the title would lead a lot of people to think that it's only for a certain segment of the population, anybody, can read it. And so the biggest driving force was to get good information out here. I think, John, you and I are fortunate enough to go to conferences throughout the country and, get a lot of insight from, different colleges, universities, community-based organizations, college admissions counselors. So we have a lot of insight to kind of the process and, how to help families. But, I find, and I'm sure that you see in the students and communities that you work with, there are a lot of people who don't know what the college admission process entails, how much it has changed. And so, really similar to this platform that you created that, I enjoy every opportunity to come back. We just want to make sure good information is out there that, if you don't have the resources to have the independent college consultant, if, your high school, you don't know your college counselor well, if you're a first generation family, or if you're a family that's been through this process 3 times and you don't understand everything that's changed, the book is just one, way to get information about what is going on to help you guide your family. And so things that we talk about that I think are for any population is, we talk about mental health and how mental health plays in this process. We look at how AI is going to continue to kind of influence the college admission process. We look at kind of, the college admission, what things should be doing, how early you should be thinking about your class selection, and a lot of different things that are for anybody. But definitely, we wrote the book because we wanted, Black families in particular to understand, what are some of the decisions they have to make early on in the process, thinking about what's best for their family and their child in the college admission process. So it's done very, very well. We're excited about it. We have some other great projects in the works. But, we just want to continue to share good information, and platforms like this definitely, help with that. So keep up the great work. I mean, how many episodes you said? Oh, you have over 300 episodes?
Yeah, well over 300.
Man, you are humming.
Closing on 400 soon.
Hey, man. Well, hopefully, we can celebrate that 400th anniversary. I know we got some big conferences coming up that I'm gonna get a chance to see you. I owe you a slice of pizza. Last time we were in Columbus, I was getting a slice of pizza late at night, and John was like, "I got you." So thank you, sir. Next time we're together, the pizza slices are on me.
I would love that. And I also want to mention that at the last conference, I was able to get a signed copy of your book, which is on my shelf in my office. I have read it, and you're absolutely right. It really is a wealth of information, which of course I will link in the show notes. Now, Tim, I know that you do a lot of speaking engagements. You do a lot of work in addition to me linking your book. If there's anything else that you want me to link to all of the listeners, it's my honor and pleasure to, of course, make it available to them in the show notes. So, Tim, as I knew, again, this was going to be a phenomenal conversation. Unfortunately, it does lead us to that last question. And you've given so many pieces of advice, but the last question always is, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for students and their families getting ready for the college admissions process?
Yeah, so advice number one. All right. So we have talked a lot about students. We talked about, obviously families, but this is for parents, especially those who are going in to the application process for the class of 2027. You all need to find one time a week to discuss the college admission process, that it should not overtake a great time in your student's career, your senior year. There's so many great moments of senior year. It should not be consumed with the college admission process. So depending upon kind of the flow of your household, 1-2 hours a week to say, we're going to talk about deadlines. We're going to talk about schools. We're going to talk about financial aid, whatever the case is. Choose that time to talk as a family and make sure that you have time to enjoy the rest of high school. All right. So that's number one. Number two, parents and families, protect your students. Mental health, anxiety in this process is real. And, Obviously, you know what's best for your student, but this shouldn't be a conversation that is for everybody. So, you may want to tell family, friends, like, hey, we're not going to, publicly talk about the college admission process, to where your student doesn't have to be constantly bombarded with, hey, where did you apply? Then you get in the holidays, hey, where did you get in? And then, depending upon how the situation works out, those might not be conversations your student wants to have or your family wants to have. So building some guardrails around how wide this conversation is going to be. And then my final bit of advice is for students who are listening out there. I want you to know that you are great, that you are going to go through this process, that you are going to be successful, and you are going to land at the institution that is just for you. Do not, do not spend senior year comparing yourself to other students. When we look at college admission process, we're looking like individual students. So if somebody has a higher GPA than you, they may not be as interesting in you. If somebody has a higher test score than you, we're test optional. That test may not matter. So do not spend senior year saying this person has a higher GPA, they're involved more, because they're not you. And at the highly selected schools, who you are is going to be what really, really matters. So do not spend senior year comparing yourself, wondering what other people are doing, caring about their decisions, because of who you are, because of the greatness that you have done in your high school career, are going to end up exactly where you want. So enjoy the year, have fun. Your parents are going to put up guardrails to protect you, but this is a great time in life. So those of rising seniors, I want you to enjoy it. And parents, please support them and help them through the process as far as navigating all that this senior year is going to have, but protect them as far as their mental health, protect them as far as making sure they enjoy their time. And students, you're going to do great.
Such great advice. Truly amazing. That's why you're a pro, my friend. And as you put it, by the way, there's over 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States alone. Students, there's more than one school that is for you. So just get out there, find that fit, and really try to enjoy this reflective process that we call the college admissions process. And Tim, again, you're amazing. I really love seeing you at conferences. You're a rock star, and can't thank you enough for being here today, my friend.
Hey, John, thank you. Thank you. Continue to do great work. I enjoy all the work you're doing as far as providing information for families, your podcast. Our podcast, I think we're about to come up on episode 75. So we got to catch up. And we got to get you on, man. We got to get you on. So you're going to get a call and trying to schedule a time to get you on so you can share some information as far as the great work you do, not only at your high school, but, everything that you're doing in college admission as well.
Well, that's awesome. And I'll definitely link your podcast as well as the book in the show notes. Give a shout out to the name of the podcast, please, Tim.
Application to Admission with my co-host is my co-author, Shereen Herndon Brown. So definitely check it out on all podcast platforms.
And a big shout out to Shareem. I see him at the conferences as well. He's been on the podcast with you in the past to talk specifically about the book. Tim, you're amazing. Can't thank you enough. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all, and best wishes.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.